Yeah, you're welcome along, football show. So Champions League is progressing. Napoli 1-0 up on Frankfurt, 3-0 up on aggregate. They are sailing through, second half just underway. Meanwhile, at the Bernabeu, 0-0 in the Premier League. Brighton 1-0 up against Crystal Palace. I checked, it wasn't Evan Ferguson, if you're wondering. And then Southampton 0, Brentford 1. 78 minutes gone in both of those games. Michael McCarthy is with me in studio because I can't do everything. You're going to keep an eye on some of these games.
I'll try.
A very good first half, it must be said, at the Bernabeu. Real Madrid started brilliantly, and you were very worried looking at Fabinho and Milner trying to stem Camavinga and Kroos and Modric and Benzema lurking around and Vinicius Jr. getting on the ball. And Madrid genuinely nearly scored about 4 worldies.
Yeah.
Just these pot shots from outside the box. None of them went in. And Liverpool, to be fair to them, really rallied, created some excellent chances of their own and have made real inroads. And were it not for events at Anfield, it would be a really intriguing, tense game.
Yeah, well, you wonder whether it would be playing out this way, but it's a really enjoyable match. Like, I mean, just Courtois made an amazing save, from Nunes. Alisson made an amazing save that then hit the crossbar. You didn't even realise was a save until like the third replay. You know, it's been one of those types of games. Those kind of like 25-yard almost worldies are one of those things that are often not analysed in the way that like a stretch defence would be, in that they generally come from a collapsed midfield. You know, think again, as I mentioned in the news, and think Christian Eriksen against Ireland, you know, all those years ago. And yeah, like, I mean, you diagnose what was going to happen with the Liverpool midfield, but it is remarkably 0-0. And until this gets to like 70 minutes or so and Liverpool haven't scored, there is still a chance. And they have looked like they could score, they could break it up, but Real Madrid, like in the first 20 minutes, like kind of looked like they were messing a little bit.
Yeah. Like
there was a run, I don't know if it was Vinicius, I think it was, who was just like had the ball for about a minute and a half out in the left wing, taking guys on up and down, and it was like, you don't normally do this in a real match.
Yeah.
In a Champions League knockout game.
It's very stretched at times. There are pockets of space aplenty. You do feel there's a goal coming somewhere along the way. So 49 minutes on the clock. Real Madrid 0, Liverpool 0. Michael will shout if there's a goal. Marcela, Mora, Araujo will join us later on because Messi, his father-in-law, there was an attack on the shop in Rosario, and there was a threatening note left for Messi saying effectively, you're going to be next type thing. And the drug cartel situation in Rosario is dreadful by all accounts. So it's been taken seriously-ish. I mean, in the sense that worried to come and play for Newell's Old Boys, or worried to pitch you up. There might be some effort at stupidity. In some quarters, it's been taken seriously-ish. In others, it's been discounted as just to be ignored. But Marcela will join us. Seems like a grim situation all told. And of course, Messi and PSG. It's a bit of a come down from the World Cup. So that's all on the way. Very happy to say, in the meantime, Sam Lee from The Athletic joins us. Evening, Sam.
Evening.
Let's start with last night. So you're covering Manchester City in the main for The Athletic. Erling Haaland scores 5 goals. Man City wins 7-0. He becomes Manchester City's all-time season top scorer. 39 goals. You have to go back to 1929 for the seasonal record to be broken. I dare say he's going to break every record that exists at Manchester City and then some. What's it like in the stadium? I mean, the camera cuts to his dad. They're jumping around in a corporate box having a good time. Everybody's cheering and almost turning to each other, and there's kind of like, oh my God, like we're just witnessing a parody of himself here.
Yeah, it is that turning to each other in disbelief situation. I mean, that's what me and my colleague were doing as well. You know, when he scored the kind of 2 identical goals from rebounds, from corners, he just booted them in. You're just looking at each other like, what is actually going on here? It's happened a few times this season. I think the Manchester derby, when they won 6-3, was fairly similar. And I mean, the strange thing about Haaland is he kind of not stumbles his way to hat-tricks, but he's just there. I was trying to make this point on a podcast last night. Like when Luis Suarez was having his amazing season for Liverpool, or Salah, for example, Thierry Henry, whenever they'd score hat-tricks or loads of goals or be taking the league by storm, it'd be so explosive, they'd have so many touches coming in off the wing or whatever it may be, beating players. But it's just, sometimes it just gets to half-time and you go, oh, Haaland's got another hat-trick, has he? He's just in the right place. You know, of those 5 goals last night, nobody really assisted him. He was just there. Yeah. Obviously, the first one was a penalty, and then he was just there. He just knows how to do it. So, yeah, it was that kind of feeling of disbelief. And you mentioned the camera was panning to his dad, but I think it was after he scored the 5th, the camera just panned back to him at the end of his celebration, and he kind of shrugged and smiled at whoever the nearest teammate was. Like even he was just like, well, what can you say? A very just the home games at the Etihad for the Champions League are really good. They're the best City games for me, and I was glad last night was another one. I mean, even if Leipzig had played more of their part and scored a few more goals themselves, that would have been great. But they're the best, most entertaining City games for me, and yeah, it's good that they'll have another one at least.
Well, they sure will. I mean, like, there's just so much to analyse in what he does, and then there are other goals where you're like, well, how has that fallen to him? How has he manifested that? Certainly the De Bruyne strike off the crossbar, his anticipation there just stands out a mile. I mean, he's such a big frame that even when De Bruyne is rocketing a ball towards the goal, Haaland's vaguely in your consciousness. And, you know, the defenders are goal side of Haaland when the shot is taken. But the second he sees De Bruyne lining up, he turns and he starts moving, and who knows how many runs he makes in vain, but sometimes...
Well, a lot.
Yeah, a lot, yeah, we see those as well. And then I thought, the header itself was really good. That was not an easy header from an athletic point of view to get up and react. And as for the fourth goal, I mean, the athleticism again for that header, and ball back to him and he smashes it in, and he just makes it look so easy. The fifth goal with the right foot makes it look so easy. And you're kind of thinking, Pep, do not take him off. Do not take him off.
Yeah, I can't, because a couple of times this season he's been on 2 and he's been taken off. And I can't remember if I think he had 4 already, but it may have been 3 when City made their first 2 subs and he stayed on. But I remember thinking, he's going to get to 5 here and then Pep will take him off. And then he did. And, you know, Pep's not really bothered. It makes sense to, you know, rest him and give minutes to other players and all that kind of thing. But you do want to see just how many goals he could actually get. And you mentioned the various aspects of his different goals there. The one with the header from De Bruyne hitting the bar and his movement and his anticipation. The thing about that was, if you go back 10 seconds before that, he charged in to close down the keeper, kind of barged into the keeper. Keeper booted it downfield. Akanji booted it back. And he could easily be offside there. He could easily be offside if he hadn't kept moving.
Yeah.
But after closing down the keeper, he got well back onside. Like, there was no danger of him being offside. And then again, as basically pick up as you described it, as De Bruyne lines up the shot, he then gets in behind the defence again. But again, he's already onside and then times it well. And that level of movement and anticipation is incredible. And I've been trying to work out how. Like, he had that kind of upbringing in Norway where they was with the same age group from 11 to 16, all of them together, and they played a lot. But like, all the best footballers in the world play loads of football. Got loads. All the rubbish footballers in the world play a lot of football. Like, Messi played loads of football, but not everyone who plays loads of football has got the magic that Messi has. Not everyone who's played loads of football has got that knack of being in the right places Haaland has, and that's the real skill that he's got. You know what he was asked, wasn't he? What's your super strength? And he was like, I have to say scoring goals. So it's hard to argue with that. He just knows how to do it.
I'm super curious to get your take on the type of season he's having at City, because and these, you would think these are mutually exclusive, and somehow I don't think they are. On the one hand, he's just scored 39 goals and is Manchester City's all-time, breaking that record from 1929, all-time seasonal record goal scorer, and that record is going to be extended considerably. And so you look at that and you say, this has been outrageous. And then on the very opposite side of the ledger, there are numerous times we watch Manchester City and he seems to be roundly ignored by his teammates far too often. You think it's not quite clicking, and he should be getting more service, and he must be a frustrated figure. You would think both of those things can't both be true, but it does feel that way. That is my sense of his season, Sam.
Yeah, and I think the crux of it really is he's not a Messi, he's not an Mbappe that can make things happen by himself. I mean, obviously, look, once the ball's in the box, we've just talked about his ability to be in the right area. But if City aren't getting the ball in the box, then it's much harder for him. He can't go and drop deep and get it and beat a few players and put it in the top corner. So it's not going to happen. You know, maybe it happens once, but it doesn't happen every week, which is the Mbappe and Messi situation. And so basically, teams won't play like Leipzig did. They won't try and play up in the back, and they won't get caught so often. And then you won't have these kind of transition situations where De Bruyne and Haaland and everyone else can exploit them. You've normally just got teams sitting deep in the Premier League. This is getting 2, 3, 4 men around him. City can't get him the ball as a result. As you say, sometimes it seems like they ignore him. I think Guardiola's trying to fully harness Haaland in terms of he doesn't want to play fully to his strengths and get the ball in behind him too often because it risks City losing the ball easily and then them getting counter-attacked. Guardiola doesn't want that. So I think sometimes the players are going out there thinking, he doesn't want me to give the ball away. He wants me to pick out Grealish and Mahrez out wide and recycle possession. But he does want me to find Haaland, but I don't want to give the ball away. And they're caught in two minds and they just don't give it to him. And then you've got the other situation where De Bruyne would look for those passes, but he's not been in the best form either. You've got a bit of a paradoxical situation there when he's got loads of assists this season, more than anyone else in the Premier League, but he's not been playing that well either. Yeah. It's like you were saying about Haaland.
Yeah.
So there's a few different ingredients to it. But yeah, like despite all these incredible numbers and the records he's broken and will break, he hasn't made them better yet. I think it's just because of the way the team's set up. Like, it's not easy to frustrate City and to frustrate Haaland, but most teams don't try and play like Leipzig did last night. And that's kind of an advert for why not. Because if you do try and open up and you do try and take risks, then it can just backfire so easily.
De Bruyne seemed to have a bit of bite in his game last night and had a good game. The last full 90 minutes I saw from City was against Newcastle, which was a good win. But it's no exaggeration to say the first 5, 6, 7 times De Bruyne got the ball, he gave it away, which is, hard to imagine if you didn't see the game. What's been your read on De Bruyne's season? Why is he not quite himself?
As for why, I don't know. I only started thinking over the weekend what I was just saying there, because with Bernardo Silva and Ilkay Gundogan, for example, if they're thinking, we've got to keep the ball, but we need to pass to him, then maybe there's an element of that in De Bruyne's game. I think there certainly has been with Foden's. Foden's kind of lost his place, and it's because he's not, for various reasons, but the tactical one is he's a bit more direct than Grealish and Mahrez and doesn't kind of have quite the same appreciation of when to slow the game down and not lose the ball so easily. And you think Guardiola's always trying to find this balance between the players like Foden, which are like Haaland and De Bruyne and Alvarez, and then the ones like Grealish, Mahrez, Gundogan, Bernardo, who can slow it down and have better control. Guardiola only seems to pick two of the more direct ones, and it's normally Haaland and De Bruyne. With De Bruyne not playing well and Foden kind of improving a bit, you've got Foden coming back in. But then you think, Foden's kind of been caught in two minds sometimes. Does he go too much? Does he make those or try and make those killer passes and runs that Guardiola doesn't like all the time? So then he stops doing them and then he becomes a lesser player. So is there part of that with De Bruyne? Is he just having a bit of an off season, which can obviously happen? It sounds like a cop-out for a journalist to say that, but it can happen.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's, the World Cup factor tied after that. I know he wasn't in top condition when he came back. All these different reasons, I don't know. But it is interesting because sometimes that Newcastle game was a good example. He actually got taken off after about an hour.
Yeah.
He wasn't playing great.
No.
But in a lot of games this season, he's not been playing great, but he still gets an assist somehow.
Yeah.
He still gets 2 assists somehow. And that's happened several times this season. And that's the other strange thing about it. As poor by his standards as he has been, he's still putting up those numbers.
No, it's true.
If he can get back to it and start finding Haaland, and then Haaland in this kind of form, then that's really where you see it going to the next level.
Yeah. This is such an interesting Manchester City season on various fronts. So the league, Arsenal look increasingly likely to be thereabouts, and City will have to play serious football to keep pace and overtake them. That said, in the Champions League, starting to feel like this is a really good chance for City, the way things are shaping up. There is the off-the-field charges, which I'll ask you about in a few moments' time. And then there's just a sense it's not the way Pep wants things. So we'll come to Cancelo in a moment. Again, I've got this list of things to ask you about. The Cancelo transfer out of nowhere. Pep, outing Calvin Phillips and his weight. And I suppose that the quotes which maybe encapsulated the season, the third week of January, City go 2-0 down to Spurs and Manchester City come back and win 4-2. And Pep said afterwards, passion, fire, desire, the want to win, all missing from the first minute. Our fans silent for 45 minutes. We are far away from the team that we were. We're far away from the team we were. There are many things where we are far away. Our fans must push us, must demand more, have to shout. And then the line which made the headlines, we are a Happy Flowers team. And I don't want to be a Happy Flowers team. I mean, in a way, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but it also encapsulates the issue with City. There's something awry, and he's identified it there.
Yeah, I think that was more so the case. Like you say, that was the third week of January. I think they've been much closer to what they have been of late. I mean, I'm not coming on here disagreeing with you at all in terms of their form around that period. I was right with you. You know, they were decidedly not City. There was something missing. All kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes, as you kind of we'll get to with Cancelo, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just him; there was others. Just that attitude, and it seemed like something had fallen away. But if you look at even the form table going back a few weeks, the last 6 games or so, they were top of it, and you think that's interesting how they managed that. And since then, they've added another 3 wins. I think they drew at Forest, but that was football. You know, they should have won 5-0, but okay. But you couldn't complain about the attitude or application or whatever. And now in the Champions League, again, because we're always looking out for Guardiola's mad lineups. When it doesn't go wrong, you go, "Oh, he was overthinking this." But as well as the players you've also got a manager who is capable of making these changes and it working brilliantly. And that's what happened last night. So you add all those things in, they are coming back around to much more like what we expect from them. Now, they haven't won 4 Premier League games in a row all season, which backs up the point, you know, not just after Christmas, but kind of before it as well. They do have an opportunity to do that, but then the first game back is against Liverpool. And even though Liverpool are far from the force that they have been, I'm sure they'll turn up for that game, and I'm sure Guardiola will kind of, I don't know, City always just find a way to make it difficult against Liverpool. Liverpool have been struggling all season. They were struggling when City went to Anfield earlier in the season, and Liverpool won. So that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, there was definitely something missing, and all those things that Guardiola was saying about the hunger and motivation and the focus, that was an issue. But I think it's less and less. I think the further we get away from that, chronologically, the further they're actually getting away from that in terms of how it impacts their football. I think that's kind of largely been put to bed. Maybe they don't win anything this season, but I don't think they're going to go back to those kind of struggles.
Yes, he was clearly frustrated then. What was going on behind the scenes, Cancelo and beyond?
Just various different players playing, or players not playing, sorry, for various different reasons, or being upset for various different reasons. And then because they were upset, they weren't playing. And then because they weren't playing, they were upset. And it was that kind of vicious cycle. So in Cancelo's case, he came back from the World Cup. And he said it himself since he's left Bayern Munich. And people I spoke to who were kind of defending him around that time, they were saying, look, if there's 45 games in the season and he only plays 44, he'll be unhappy. That's the kind of character he is. So he didn't play in Portugal's 2 knockout games at the World Cup. So he came back and he was upset. So Guardiola was like, well, he's not in the right frame of mind. And he doesn't handle himself brilliantly when he's not playing. So Guardiola thought, well, I'm not gonna pick him then. And then when he did give him the opportunities, he wasn't playing well. So then he was out of the team. And then the more he was out of the team, the more he was like openly complaining, to the point where it got to the stage where everyone sat down. They went, right, let's just get you out of here. You want to go? It's not right for you to be here. Go. So that was the kind of big glaring example. But I think there was other issues. Walker. Laporte still won. Laporte can't get a game for love nor money at the moment. He'll want to leave in the summer. Whether he does or not, we'll see. He had the same situation 2 years ago and couldn't go, but he's not been happy and he's not been playing. And it's another vicious circle. I think there was a little bit of it with Foden, but also he had an injury as well, so that didn't help his mood. There's all these little things, really. I think I'm trying to remember now. I think Bernardo didn't come back in great form, which is easy to forget now because he's playing very well again. But he didn't come back in great form. De Bruyne didn't come back. He played very well against Liverpool in the first game back, actually. But after that, and since then, it's kind of cost him a bit more. And the Phillips thing, they can't really rely on Phillips to come in yet. So they did come back from the World Cup very disrupted through injuries and attitude and off-field problems. And that was why Guardiola kind of went so public to try and rally everyone, because it was like, well, we don't pick this up now, we're not going to win anything this year. And it was kind of his last ditch attempt, last resort to try and get everybody pulling together so they could actually do something this season. And you'd have to say it looks like it works, but I think when you ask some of the players about it, they don't even agree, let alone like acknowledge it worked. Because for them, they see Guardiola saying all these mad things all the time to them to try and get them to be as intense as he is and to stay on top of it. And I think to an extent it kind of washes over them.
Yeah.
But something obviously did change after that, because they are much better now.
Yeah, it is interesting. Because, I mean, Cancelo is just such a quality player. and fulfill such a specific role for City. And I dare say lots of Manchester City fans, Rico Lewis and various centre-halves who can fill in, and Bernardo Silva who can get thrown out there notwithstanding, I would dare say as they watched Cancelo leave and Zinchenko ripping it up for Arsenal, they thought, well, I mean, if he came home upset from the World Cup, play him, put an arm around the shoulder, don't fall out with him and sell him. He's one of our best players. But listen, Guardiola's Guardiola and me and you are not, so I'm sure he had his reasons. But I did think, God, I mean, it's a big player to bomb out mid-season.
Yeah, but like you can't really. Well, you don't want to overstate it too much because he wasn't going around like physically fighting people, but it was like a bad presence in the dressing room.
Okay,
and like just arguments and complaints and stuff. And at a time when he had enough things to worry about with other players who maybe weren't quite so angry about things, but didn't quite have the right mentality for various reasons, whether they were injured or feeling sorry for themselves or whatever.
Yeah,
because like, we need to take this guy out of it. You know, I'm trying to sort things out here. This guy's kind of noticeably dragging things down. So let's move him out and move on. Yeah, in terms of his ability, you're absolutely right. But if you think about why were they so happy to get rid of somebody so good, it, in a way, kind of speaks for itself.
Yes, no, fair point. The charges, the 115 charges, I mean, like it feels like such a long time ago since this was like the biggest story and stopped everyone in their tracks. And I can't remember the last time I heard someone talking about it, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to talk about? Like, it's there now. I mean, I guess the next time we'll hear anything is when the panel, the independent panel, is made up.
Yeah.
And the people will talk about that for 24 hours, maybe just for the rest of that day. If it comes out at lunchtime, maybe for the rest of that day.
Yeah.
And then you wait for the panel to reach their findings, and that could take a year or more. So, it's strange because these charges are there. You can mention them, you know, every now and again when we're doing this. You know, if City win the Premier League or the Champions League this season, it'll be mentioned, oh, by the way, this thing's still hanging over them. But what more can be said? Like, we don't know anymore. And in terms of the last time people spoke about it, like it doesn't, in terms of why? In terms of things washing over the players. They've been through this with UEFA and that Champions League ban. They were, you know, all assured by City, who genuinely believe that they've not done anything wrong and nothing's really going to come of it. So it was just a case inside City of keep doing what they're doing and see how it plays out. And I think for the rest of us as well, we're not going to have a resolution one way or the other for more than a year, I'd say.
Yeah.
So let's just move. I think put a pin in it and move on.
I think perhaps if City had been running away with the title, it would be the talking point almost, because it's just in the absence of a compelling title race. But the novelty of Arsenal and the fact, you know, that it is a compelling title race, the natural inclination is now to put that into the background. So look, people are generally aware at this stage the 115 charges of breaching financial fair play over 9 years, accused of failing to give a true and fair view of the financial position, failing to include all the details of player and manager remuneration. There is no statute of limitations here. What we can certainly say is that the Premier League would not have gone so public with so many charges unless they were confident in their case. And what we can also say is that Manchester City are adamant that they're very confident in their defence. We'll watch it play out. It was very striking that Pep went all in behind the club, Sam. From the summertime where he, you know, had that line about, well, look, I've told them I won't be friends with you tomorrow if you're lying to me, to I'm all in here. I'm absolutely all in. And he got like a hero's reception when he walked out at the Etihad. Now, I suppose if things go badly awry, he can say, well, they lied to me and they really did lie to me and they're terrible people and you know, pivot away that way. But what did you make of Pep going from, well, if they've, you know, I have assurances and I won't be their friend, to trust me, these guys have done it by the book and I'm right behind them. That manoeuvring on his part.
Well, no, but that's the thing. You're making it sound like two different positions, but it's the same position. The point being, in the first place, if they've lied to me, then I'll go. But the point at the time was they haven't lied to me.
Yeah, but they
were consistent all the way through.
No, I hear you, but do you not take the point that it was very much listen, I've asked them, and if they're lying to me, I'm absolutely behind them. They've done it by the book. It's a stronger support. It might amount to the same thing, but it was a stronger line, I thought, on Pep's part. You wouldn't agree?
No, but no, because
The first time he's threatening them. The second time he's saying we've absolutely done nothing and it's going to be proven.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. That's the thing. He wasn't threatening them. It was a kind of continuation. And I'm not sure why. I can't remember the context of why he said it in May last year, but it was the same stuff he was saying.
Right.
What was it? 2021? No, 2020 wasn't it? Pandemic. When they had CAS overturning the Champions League ban, everything he said then was kind of like, well, the club have told me this.
Yeah.
And I believe them, and we'll see how it goes. And then he felt vindicated, of course, because CAS overturned the ban, and he said, "Well, they told me what was going on. They were right, and he doesn't trust the other clubs, etc., etc." So why ever he said this in May, I can't remember the exact context. Presumably, it was at the end of maybe they just won or were about to win, and it was just another, like you say, a question about that kind of stuff gets thrown in. But it was entirely consistent. I'm not saying he's right or he's wrong, but it was entirely consistent. What he was saying in May is exactly the same as what he said recently. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't like, I'm going to go. It was they've told me. And I completely believe them. And maybe he phrased it badly, or maybe I'm explaining it badly. But I mean, I can't stress enough, it wasn't two different positions.
Okay. No, I take the point, two positions. And look, you're sitting on his press conferences, so it's good to get your sense of it, because certainly the written word looked like May was I'm keeping a degree of distance between me and the club, and last month it looked like we've done nothing wrong here, and I believe in these guys 100%. They've explained it to me. It did look like a stronger show of support, I suppose.
Yeah, well, when City got the charges through on that Monday, that quote, I saw it everywhere. Yeah. And everyone was taking it as, oh, well, he's going to have to go now, isn't he? Because they've been charged. But first of all, the charges and being found guilty isn't the same thing. But also, that wasn't how he was saying it. Like that just wasn't how he was saying it. It was like I say, it doesn't have to be. I'm not saying he's right, and I'm not saying he's wrong. But that opinion has been consistent the whole way through. Okay, there's no changing of position. It's
not a stronger one. That's interesting, because it's definitely been kind of reported that way and felt that way. One last one. This is not the most important issue we've discussed. I'm just going to play some audio. You can tell me what the hell's going on here.
I'm a failure in Champions League, so don't worry. Listen, I'm going to explain a secret. So whatever happened this year in Champions League, winning. Even if I win this Champions League, we win this Champions League in 3 Champions League in a row, I will be a failure. I'm going to tell you something. I have 3 idols in my life: Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Julia Roberts. Okay, these are my 3 idols. So for obvious reasons, Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods is not it, and Julia Roberts as well. So Julia Roberts years ago came to Manchester. Not in 1890 with Sir Alex Ferguson win the titles. Came in the period like we were better than United this 4 or 5 years, huh? And he went to visit Man United. She didn't come to see us. So that's why this is, even I win the Champions League, will not be compared for the fact that Julia Roberts come to Manchester, they don't come to see us. So my idol. So that's why whatever happened, even I win the Champions League, will be compared for the disappointment I had. So that you have to know it.
Sam, I hear that and I feel like I'm on mushrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I actually couldn't hear that brilliantly, but it's fine because I heard it in the flesh last night and it was like, right, what is happening? Fortunately, I think he did say to German TV after the game that he had a glass of wine. And I mean, it may have been one of those novelty glasses, this like the size of an actual bottle that you get like your mother-in-law or something for Christmas. Yeah, he had a few, earlier on when you said he knows more than me and you, like he was saying that as well. He goes, I have more info than the Twitter guys. He was like, I'm sorry, guys, I was right. And all these kind of things, he just felt like getting off his chest. But God knows where the Julia Roberts thing came from. God knows. It was hilarious, but
yeah.
No, who knows? I mean, he can be a strange fellow at the best of times. In that, I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you throw in alcohol into the mix and the emotions of a big victory, and I guess you get that. But not many managers are coming out with that kind of stuff, are they?
More of it. Listen, super interesting. I like in some ways it is the most interesting City season of recent years in many ways. Someone wants to know: does Sam think that he'll put Haaland at left back for the Champions League final? I mean, he may do. It may be the answer.
I have been trying to think of what would be the most kind of outlandish Guardiola thing to do, and also the thing that would get the most dismayed reaction, and I think it will probably just be putting Haaland on the bench and just playing Foden as false nine again like last season. It'll be. I don't think he would do that. I just don't think he would do that. But that's why it's so kind of out there and the most dismaying reaction. I mean, we'll have to see if they get that far, but there'll be something. Don't you worry about that. There'll be something. Yeah. But look, there was something last night. The fans didn't really like playing Bernardo on the right wing instead of Mahrez or Foden, and it was a masterstroke. So. Yeah, it might work. I know. If he does play Haaland the left back, maybe it works.
For every kind of wobble, there are like 10 examples of genius. So I think he gets a pass. Sam, brilliant stuff. Great to talk to you. Thanks a mil.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Sam Lee there from The Athletic, who covers City in the main. Michael.
Yes.
What's happening? Oh,
still 0-0. It's still 0-0. Yeah, Madrid have had the better chances. Benzema should have scored at one point. Liverpool trying hard, but not really getting anywhere, to be honest. It's over now. They have a more traditional kind of lineup now. It's Firmino up front with Gakpo and Salah. They brought on
Elliot, I see.
Elliot and Oxlade-Chamberlain in midfield. So, it's fizzling out a little bit. It's still kind of going at a high tempo, as Madrid again should have scored. Did score.
Benzema
from a really weird, terrible goal.
Vinicius Junior was in and half got a shot away but didn't, and it fell to Benzema, who's now limping in the celebration.
Well, I'm sure he's already retired from international football, hasn't he? Yeah, so no, that's no interest to us. Yeah, look, I mean, I think, to be honest, putting Liverpool out of their misery, because again, they have been trying, but they haven't been getting anywhere. Final ball completely absent. Madrid, the better team. Kind of feel sorry for Liverpool in a way, because they're just like, Klopp's got booked, he's animated on the sideline. The players are all up for this, but they're just too far behind, So now it's over. We can relax the last 12 minutes. One other piece of news from football tonight, Joe, that isn't good news. Norwich are playing in the Championship. Adam Ida sets up a goal, gets taken off injured for Timo Pukki after 42 minutes. Okay. So we don't know exactly anything yet, obviously, but that doesn't look good, going off injured in the first half. A man who hasn't been in recent Ireland squads because of a horrible year and a half of injuries. He's got Pukki out of the Norwich team. Like, you know what I mean? He's playing well. He's a really, really important player for a good side, and injured again right before the international break.
That's a pity. Yeah. Napoli are 3-0 up on the night. I think that'd be 6 on aggregate against Frankfurt. And in the Premier League this evening, full-time results: Brighton have beaten Crystal Palace by 1-0. Brentford 2-0 winners away to Southampton. And our football show coverage is with thanks, as ever, to Sky. Catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. We're talking Messi with Marcela next. Now you're welcome back. So Real Madrid 1, Liverpool 0. The latest, if you're just tuning in, Benzema scoring in the last few moments. Napoli will cruise through as well this evening. They're 6 up on aggregate against Frankfurt. Very happy to bring in Marcela Mora Araujo. Evening, Marcela.
Hello there, hi.
Strange story this, and apologies by the way, we're slightly tighter for time than we had been hoping for, so we'll try and get through it. Lionel Messi and Rosario's Narco Wars, we are waiting for you, is the headline on the Athletic piece by Sebastian Fest, which more than captures the eye. So basically what seems to have happened here 10 days ago or so is that there were gunshots and an attack on Messi's father-in-law's supermarket in the west of the city. He seems to own a chain, and just to prove it wasn't some kind of random attack, there was a note left with 14 bullet holes in the shop front saying, "Messi, we are waiting for you." Messi, of course, born in Rosario and has talked about wanting to finish up playing at Newell's Old Boys. And there is a theory that it may be a gang of drug traffickers, and there's been talk of corrupt police. Why they would be threatening Messi, or to what extent it's a serious threat, is more difficult for us to ascertain. Hence, you're with us.
Thank you, Your Honour. So, I think it's an ongoing story. It's a horrible word, but issue in Rosario. The kind of football gangs that are violent and that have somehow become embroiled also in the narco trade. And this has been going on for about 10 years, and it's well documented and researched, and the topic of great scrutiny by criminologists and lawyers. And you've mentioned police corruption and the couple of cases of well-known gangs of narcos that have made it to court and to trial the level of police involvement was up to 50%. So it's a huge social issue, and I think the tally of murder, the murder rate in Rosario is really high compared to the rest of the country. Now, people in Rosario say we await the kind of high profile cases because they immediately awaken the response from Buenos Aires. Rosario full of narcos, like it's a problem that's something that has nothing to do with, the rest of Argentina. The camera crews arrive. It kind of tops the headlines for a while, and then it quietens down outside Rosario, where it's, as I say, an ongoing issue. They're looking at a rate of something like a murder a day for 2023 so far. The most astonishing was an 11-year-old boy who seems to have got caught in the crossfire. Generally, that's what happens. Innocent bystanders fall accidentally. There was one very high-profile case of a musician who seems to have been chosen to send a message of control and power. That's the kind of background. The Antonella Racuso's father's supermarket store was shot at by drive-through, and then there were these kind of graffiti mentioning Messi. No one's established that there's a direct connection, that there's a message for Messi, that the involvement of one, some people are talking about it's the Rosario Central fans because he's a Newell's guy. Other people are saying it's a message so he doesn't, because he took a photograph at the FIFA best thing with a guy that's, an ex-politician that's now a FIFA honcho. And I say a guy, he was the president of Argentina, Mauricio Macri. I don't think Messi had a choice regarding that picture. He was at a FIFA event. This was a FIFA executive. I don't think Messi is particularly politically outspoken or active or has expressed sympathies one way or another. Maybe he is. I mean, it's not something that's part of his persona. And I don't think the Racuso family are in any way kind of participants of one gang or another, or the police or the rest of it. It seems like it's just one more incident in an extraordinary story of a sophisticated, buzzing city, some say the third city in the country in terms of population and culture and so on, which has, as I say, this extremely unusual correlation between the active violent gangs and the narco trade. And it's not the narco trade in Rosario particularly, it's a kind of through route, drugs and so on come down the river and then they're distributed. But it's the way in which the violence is playing out with a certain amount of police complicity or partisan decision-making, and also a slightly kind of ineffectual judicial system. So judges and courts try cases one by one without joining the dots necessarily. So maybe you can see you have an organized gang, but each incident is tried separately and investigated separately. We have no idea. Everything linking it to Messi is pure speculation, other than the graffiti, which might have been unrelated for all we know. I mean, there's no reason why the narcos would target Messi. As one journalist in Rosario said to me, as far as we've seen so far in the last decade, narcos don't leave messages signed "the narcos." So the whole thing seems to be, perhaps correctly identified that if you mention Messi, you'll get a lot of press and repercussion. And as I say, a couple of incidents and actual assassinations in Rosario have actually dominated the headlines a lot more than this incident locally.
Yes, okay. Well, that clears that up. And
hardly.
Well, it just sounds like such a grim, wider situation. I wasn't aware, because we often reference Rosario with Messi, and I wasn't aware it was in such a grim state of affairs. Like I did see the National Security Minister came out after a 28-year-old was shot and dumped outside the Newell's stadium. He came out and simply said, the narcos have won. It was like this grim, we give up.
It's almost a terrible thing to say, and I'm sure he regrets saying it. I mean, he said it a couple of weeks ago in part at the funeral of this 11-year-old boy, where it's interesting because there is a popular stance against this. They've literally just gone out to march and protest and stop the traffic. They've got chants saying, stop killing people, stop killing children. I know doctors who work in Rosario who say we just see children coming in with gunshots. It's absolutely awful.
Yeah.
But again, I kind of point out to this Rosario reaction of saying, you people in Buenos Aires are talking about us like we're a completely different planet or something. Why don't you become involved in this problem and start to own it as well? And I think last week the national government sent more police, but I don't think the issue is more police. I think there is, as I say, well, what criminologists studying this for over a decade, you need to rethink how you're going to approach this. I mean, for a long time, people were going, the football gangs in Rosario are so violent, and just thinking it's a football problem. We know all about this, kind of trying to make football thugs a separate entity from the rest of society. It doesn't really work like that. And now people are going, it's a narco problem. They have narco traffickers in Rosario, and it's not exactly that either. So there's this, what's unusual is how it's working out that these violent gangs that generally don't tend to be quite successful commercially are so tied in with this rather powerful narco trafficking distribution thing, and identifying who's who and what they're up to. I mean, the little boy that was shot in the crossfire, well, he died. There were several children shot. That was in two Newell's gangs fighting with each other, and so it's kind of in club gangs as well. So it's all a little bit out of control. But as I say, that's been the case for a decade.
Right. Okay.
And I think that the Messi angle, it's kind of made us all talk about it, but it hasn't really. There's no real information as to why they mentioned Messi, and certainly no follow-up. They haven't asked him to do anything. Usually football gangs want something or put pressure. And who knows?
We'll
are they offering protection? Are they threatening? Are they just? Was it a separate? Was it someone else who just came and graffitied Messi because they knew who the supermarket belonged to?
Okay, so no obvious answers and a grim backdrop. Sorry, we're so short in time. Appreciate you coming on, Marcela. Thank you.